Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. More than 1,000 flights have been delayed or canceled this morning after the FAA initiated cuts at 40 major airports as the shutdown drags on. What to know if you are flying or booking flights in the near future. Vice President J.D. Vance has some strong words for a federal judge following a major ruling on SNAP funding. And the Trump administration is asking for an emergency pause to the judge's order. We have the latest. President Trump is set to meet with Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban today. The two leaders are expected to discuss Hungary's reliance on Russian oil. Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik enters the race for New York governor, taking aim at Governor Kathy Hochul over cost of living and crime concerns.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
And the Trump administration is asking a federal appeals court to pause a judge's order to fully fund SNAP benefits. The administration says there is only enough money for a partial payment in November. In a court filing, the administration called the situation a crisis by congressional failure, saying it can only be solved by congressional action. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on yesterday's court decision.
Rhode Island Judge John McConnell Jr. says the Department of Agriculture must pay states the money by today. It will go to approximately 42 million recipients of SNAP. McConnell said, "People have gone without for too long. Not making payments to them for even another day is simply unacceptable." USDA officials had declined to fund SNAP amid the government shutdown, arguing that they could not use emergency funding or revenue from tariffs. The administration had only partially funded the program, citing limits on contingency funds and reluctance to tap tariff revenue. But McConnell said that decision violated his earlier order and caused irreparable harm. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt responded that the administration has been complying, saying the president is using emergency funds meant for war and catastrophes because of the ongoing government shutdown. Vice President J.D. Vance criticized the ruling, calling it absurd.
Because you have a federal judge effectively telling us what we have to do in the midst of a Democrat government shutdown.
Vance blamed the Democrats and called on them to open the government.
Then we can fund SNAP, and we can also do a lot of other good things for the American people. But in the midst of a shutdown, we can't have a federal court telling the president how he has to triage the situation.
The judge's order was in response to a challenge from cities and nonprofits, complaining the administration was only offering to cover 65% of the maximum benefit. Lawyers for the Trump administration filed a motion to appeal shortly after the judge's ruling. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The effects of the record-breaking government shutdown continue to mount as flight reductions at 40 major U.S. airports began at 6 a.m. Eastern. The FAA said air traffic must be reduced by 4% from this morning. It will ramp up to 6% by November 11th, 8% by November 13th, and up to 10% by the 14th. Airlines preemptively canceled hundreds of flights ahead of the order. According to data from tracking website FlightAware, as of this morning, more than 1,000 U.S. flights were canceled. That's over 4 times the number of U.S. cancellations a day earlier. United, Southwest, and Delta Airlines already began canceling flights last night, affecting airports in New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. Yesterday evening, Delta said it will be canceling 170 flights today and fewer on Saturday because it's a lighter travel day. Southwest said it will cancel 120 flights for Friday, and United said it plans to cut 4% of its flights Friday through Sunday. And we're showing a list of some of the affected airports here. Federal officials say reducing the number of flights will make flying safer during the ongoing government shutdown. According to estimates, the flight cuts could represent as many as 1,800 flights and upwards of 268,000 seats combined. Here's more about the flight reductions.
The flight originally departing at 5:09 from New York to Boston is canceled due to air traffic control staffing constraints during the government shutdown that are affecting operations for all of our airlines.
Frustrated and anxious travelers hoping for the best as new restrictions kick in. The FAA gradually cutting air traffic at 40 airports nationwide until the government shutdown ends.
They need to figure their stuff out. They need to figure their stuff out.
Airlines such as Delta, Southwest, and United Airlines preemptively canceling flights ahead of the reduction. Many airlines are allowing passengers to change their tickets without fees. Meanwhile, the Air Traffic Controllers Union says the industry is facing possible mass resignations as workers remain unpaid during the shutdown, putting extra strain on an already stressed system.
And when you don't pay somebody for 37 days and say, hey, just keep showing up and do your best, people are going to have issues, and they're mounting daily.
President Trump backing the FAA's decision, claiming the cuts are a safety move to overcome staffing issues.
As Sean Duffy announced, they're cutting in certain areas 10%. And they want to make sure it's 100% safe. That's why they're doing it.
Travelers caught in the middle of the political fray, simply hoping for a safe ride home.
Yeah, I just hope that we can all get home safe.
If you're traveling soon, check the status of your flight with your airline. Some airline loyalty programs make it easy to cancel flights purchased with miles. The airlines that are temporarily providing waivers to change flights without fees include American, Delta, Southwest, United, and Frontier. Here are more tips for people flying or booking flights in the near future.
There's a number of things you should be doing to be aware.
Experts say travelers who plan to fly soon should know their options. Experts advise people departing within 10 days to keep an eye on their airline's app for changes. They say carriers likely will try to preserve their hub-to-hub operations and cut regional flights instead.
It may not be a bad idea to delay travel if it's non-essential, or if you're in a smaller city, perhaps to drive to one of the larger hubs if it's close by, and also consider buying a backup ticket.
Several airlines are letting passengers change their flights for free. The law requires them to issue refunds for cancellations, but they're unlikely to reimburse stranded passengers for meals or hotels. For people planning to buy tickets soon, experts suggest booking with airlines directly. They say that makes it easier to change flights. They recommend avoiding layovers if possible. And the Transportation Secretary suggests bracing for Thanksgiving impacts if the government stays closed.
If we have staffing triggers and we don't have enough controllers in an airspace where we did cut 10%, you might see additional delays.
2 steps forward and 1 step back. A deal to reopen the government was looking hopeful, but now it's unclear where support stands. Are there enough Democrats willing to break ranks to turn the lights back on today? NTD's Melina Wisecup reports.
Senators expected to meet this afternoon for a 15th vote on reopening the government. Leadership is eyeing a mini package that would fully fund parts of the government while patching funds for the rest until January, plus a promised Obamacare vote. Senate Leader John Thune visibly heated on the floor after reports that this offer was not enough to satisfy Democrats.
Will the far left not be satisfied until federal workers and military families are getting their Thanksgiving dinner from a food bank? Because that's where we're headed.
A key Democrat negotiator told reporters he doesn't expect the shutdown to end soon because they, quote, have to make sure we get a deal that we can get broad support for.
Because we were hearing that there were some common sense centrist Democrats who were talking to Republicans, but what I understand is that Chuck Schumer has pulled them back from that, and that they're being instructed and told they can't go there. So that's a great disappointment, and every
Democrat leadership has not softened on demands for Republicans to sign off on a definite deal to extend Obamacare subsidies.
Well, I have good news for the president. Meet with Democrats, reopen the government, fix the ACA crisis. That's the best way to put this crisis behind us.
It's unclear what Republicans plan to do if today's vote fails again. If senators don't see any hope for a deal coming to fruition, they could leave Washington for the next week. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
No employment report for an unprecedented second straight month. The Labor Department today will not publish the closely watched document as the government remains shut. Fears are also mounting that October's report might not be released when full operations resume. September's employment report is likely to be published within days of the government being reopened, but economists are not sure the Labor Department would be able to produce a full report for October, as no data was collected during the month. The consumer price report that requires the physical collection of data is also in danger of not being published. And a top economic advisor for President Trump says the government shutdown is worse than expected. Here's Kevin Hassett speaking on Fox Business earlier today.
The impact on the economy is far worse than we expected because it's gone on for so long. And so there are now like Goldman estimates that it's over 1% or 1.5% of GDP. I think we were thinking that we were going to have at least 3% growth in the fourth quarter. I think now we're expecting something like half that because of the harm by the Democrats' policy. And so,
Democrats are pushing for specific health care demands. They want to undo GOP Medicaid cuts and extend Obamacare subsidies. Hassett said the travel and leisure sector is heavily hit by the shutdown. He warned this has ripple effects, such as fewer business deals being made. He said permits are also not being processed and construction projects are starting to slow down. Hassett also pointed out that the shutdown will discourage people from taking government jobs and harm efficient government operation in the long run. But he said he expects the U.S. economy to bounce back quickly once the federal government reopens. And President Trump is sitting down with Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban at the White House today. The two leaders are expected to talk about Russian oil and plans to strengthen economic ties. This will be their first bilateral meeting since Trump returned to office in January. Trump has pressed European nations to stop buying Russian energy to cut off funding for Moscow's war in Ukraine. Hungary, which has kept Russian oil and gas flowing since the war began, is seeking exemptions from U.S. energy sanctions. Ahead of the talks, Orban, a strong ally of Trump, told Hungarian media he expected friendly negotiations despite the high stakes. The White House also says the leaders plan to expand economic cooperation, hinting at new trade deals. And President Trump is deepening ties with Central Asia. He announced new trade deals and an expansion of the Abraham Accords during a meeting with the region's leaders at the White House yesterday. Here's more on that story.
A high-level gathering at the White House yesterday. President Trump welcoming the leaders of 5 Central Asian nations for talks focused on trade, energy, and critical minerals as the U.S. competes with Russia and China in the region. The big headline, Kazakhstan joining the Abraham Accords, expanding the Middle East peace framework launched during Trump's first term.
I'm also delighted to report that Kazakhstan has officially agreed, and that's official now, as of about 15 minutes ago. A tremendous country with a tremendous leader has officially joined the Abraham Accords.
The move marks the first addition to the Accords since Trump returned to office and extends the pact's reach into Central Asia. Kazakhstan will join the UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco, though it has had full diplomatic relations with Israel since 1992. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who joined the talks, described the expanded Abraham Accords as reshaping economic alliances beyond just Israel.
It's not just with Israel, it's with all the other countries that are part of the accord. You're now creating a partnership that brings special and unique economic development on all sorts of issues that they can work on together.
Trump also touted new trade and investment deals. On Truth Social, the president announced Uzbekistan would be purchasing and investing almost $35 billion in the U.S., growing to more than $100 billion over the next 10 years, focusing on minerals, aviation, auto parts, and other technology. Kazakhstan's president also announced trade agreements between American and Kazakh companies worth billions.
During my visit alone, our businesses are concluding deals worth over $17 billion, paving the way even greater B2B partnership.
Trump used the moment to contrast his foreign policy with that of his predecessors, saying Central Asia has been overlooked for too long.
Sadly, previous American presidents neglected this region completely. It's an unbelievable region, and by the way, it happens to be an extremely wealthy region too. But we are fixing that mistake, and I'm committed to making America's partnership with each of these countries stronger than ever before.
Central Asian countries are rich in minerals and may offer an alternative to China for sourcing critical minerals. Kazakhstan's president praised Trump's role in what he called a new era of cooperation.
You are the great leader, statesman, sent by heaven to bring common sense and traditions that we all share and value back into the United States policy.
Trump framed the summit as part of a broader foreign policy agenda centered on peace through strength.
I want peace through strength, but we want peace all over the world, and we're very close to getting it.
Trump also said that within a year and a half, U.S. dependence on China for minerals will no longer be an issue.
Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik has officially launched her campaign for New York governor. Stefanik takes aim at Democratic incumbent Kathy Hochul over what she calls an affordability crisis in the state.
Kathy Hochul made New York the most unaffordable state in the nation, crushing families with sky-high taxes, unaffordable rent, soaring energy costs, and record-high grocery bills. And cozied up to a defund the police, tax-hiking, anti-Semitic communist.
Stefanik, a close ally of President Trump, does not mention him in her announcement, but vows to make New York affordable and safe again. First elected in 2014, Stefanik has climbed GOP leadership ranks and built a national profile as a staunch Trump defender. She's the first major Republican to enter the 2026 race, setting up a high-stakes challenge to Governor Hochul, who's seeking a second full term. Stefanik's 2023 questioning of university presidents on anti-Semitism on their campuses led to 2 of their resignations. New York GOP Chairman Ed Cox officially endorsed Stefanik. In a statement, he said, quote, "There will not be a Republican primary, and in a year from now, Elise will lead our team to victory over Kathy Hochul." And several people have fallen ill after a suspicious package was opened yesterday at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. A spokesperson told Axios News that several people were treated by medics yesterday and were later released in stable condition. He said as a precaution, base officials evacuated 2 buildings and cordoned off the area. First responders say there are no immediate threats and normal operations have since resumed. Authorities have opened an investigation into the incident. And Maryland officials suing President Donald Trump's administration yesterday. The lawsuit is for blocking the previously approved construction of new FBI headquarters just outside the nation's capital.
The president's plan is not just illegal. Frankly, it just lacks common sense. And his foolishness will put our public servants in jeopardy. The big problem with the current FBI building is that it lacks the modern security provisions and protections that the Bureau needs in 2025. So to be frank, the building is too old.
Maryland Governor Wes Moore criticized the Trump administration's plan to move the FBI's headquarters to the Ronald Reagan Building complex rather than to Greenbelt, Maryland. The Biden administration selected Greenbelt as the site for the new FBI building after planning the move for years. FBI Director Kash Patel has said the Reagan Building offers a faster, more cost-effective solution while remaining near the Department of Justice and other national security agencies. Several pharmaceutical giants have said they will sell drugs directly to patients in the U.S. and have offered price cuts. That's after President Donald Trump's calls to bring down drug prices. The Trump administration also plans to launch a government-run website next year called TrumpRx to reduce prices for prescription drugs. U.S. patients currently pay by far the most for prescription medicines, often nearly 3 times more than in other developed nations. So what are the major drug makers offering?
AstraZeneca and the Trump administration signed a deal on October the 10th. The company will sell some medicines at a discount to the government's Medicaid plan in exchange for tariff relief. Trump said the firm would invest $50 billion in the U.S. for drug development over the next 5 years.
Today, AstraZeneca is committing to offer all of their prescription medications to Medicaid at most favored nations prices. In other words, the lowest price anywhere in the world, that's what we get. A move that will save American taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars each year.
Eli Lilly has also made moves. In June, it said it would ship the 2 highest doses of its popular weight loss drug Zepbound to cash-paying customers on its website, starting early August. The Danish company Novo Nordisk said in August that it would offer its diabetes drug Ozempic for $499 per month. This would be for eligible cash-paying patients with type 2 diabetes in the US via its own pharmacy. US-based Pfizer and Trump said earlier in October they had cut a deal. The drug maker agreed to lower prescription drug prices in the Medicaid program compared to what it charged other countries in exchange for tariff relief. Pfizer's CEO said it will invest $70 billion in research and development, as well as domestic manufacturing. Roche has said it's considering selling its prescription medicines directly to US consumers to slash patient costs. In July, the firm's CEO spoke of ongoing talks with the US government. French drug maker Sanofi said in September it would offer a month's supply of any of its insulin products for $35 to all US patients with a valid prescription. That's regardless of insurance status.
The world's richest person could become the world's first trillionaire. Tesla shareholders overwhelmingly approved a pay package for CEO Elon Musk yesterday that has the potential to be worth $1 trillion. Here are the details.
Approved. Tesla CEO Elon Musk won shareholder approval on Thursday for the largest corporate pay package in history. That was after investors endorsed his plan of morphing the EV maker into an AI and robotics juggernaut. Musk, already the world's richest person, could get as much as $1 trillion in stock over the next decade, netting $878 billion after required payments. Musk bounded to the stage of the company's annual meeting in Austin, Texas, accompanied by dancing robots.
Those bots are just dancing.
Goals for Musk over the next decade include the company delivering 20 million vehicles, having 1 million robotaxis in operation, selling 1 million robots, and earning as much as $400 billion in core profit.
As far as I can see, the only option is to go build some very big chip fab.
But for him to get paid, Tesla's stock value has to rise in tandem. First to $2 trillion from the current $1.5 trillion and all the way to $8.5 trillion, achieving each step, which includes an operational goal and a valuation milestone, awards Musk 1% of stock. If Musk hits all of them, he would be eligible for 12% in stock, or about $1 trillion. Some major investors had opposed the plan, saying the pay could decrease shareholder value. Tesla's board had said Musk could quit if the pay package was not approved. The vote allays investor concerns that Musk's focus would turn to running his other companies, including rocket maker SpaceX and xAI. Musk has said he was more interested in the higher voting stake he would get in Tesla as part of the pay package rather than the money. That's as he gears up to sell a, quote, robot army.
A Supreme Court majority has allowed the Trump administration to block transgender Americans from selecting an X gender marker on passports. In its decision yesterday, the court lifted a lower court's block on the Trump administration's policy. A lower court had temporarily blocked the policy, and an appeals court declined to overturn the block. In a short order, the high court said, quote, displaying passport holders' sex at birth no more offends equal protection principles than displaying their country of birth. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, Justice Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan dissented from the decision. And it's been a decade since the Supreme Court's landmark ruling to allow same-sex couples to marry. Now, Supreme Court justices are weighing a bid to overturn that decision. The pending appeal comes from Kim Davis. She's a former clerk in Kentucky who refused court orders to issue same-sex marriage licenses in 2015 due to her religious beliefs. The Davis appeal is one of dozens the justices will consider to hear in a private meeting today. The court could announce as soon as Monday what it will do with the case. It could also hold the appeal for weeks, which often happens when one or more justices want to write an opinion about a decision to deny a case. The federal government says it has revoked 80,000 visas this year as part of a sweeping national security effort. The State Department said today the revocations involved individuals linked to terrorism, crime, or public safety threats, as well as visa overstays. Officials said another 16,000 visas were canceled this year for DUI offenses, 12,000 for assault, and 8,000 for theft. The State Department says the Trump administration will not hesitate to revoke visas from foreigners who undermine our laws or threaten national security. Recently, the department invalidated visas of foreign nationals for publicly celebrating the assassination of Turning Point founder Charlie Kirk. Democrats have criticized the Trump administration's revocation of student visas, saying it's been done in many cases without justification or explanation. And a federal judge in Oregon will rule today on whether President Trump violated federal law by deploying National Guard troops to Portland. District Judge Karen Immergut's decision follows a high-profile trial testing the limits of presidential power to use the military on U.S. soil. Troop deployments remain on hold under a temporary court order, and Immergut will decide whether to make that block permanent. The case hinges on whether the protests in Portland amounted to a rebellion that could legally justify a military response. At least 32 people have been charged with federal crimes stemming from the Portland protests since they began in June. About half the defendants were charged with assaulting federal officers, including 14 felonies and 7 misdemeanors. Charging documents describe protesters kicking and shoving officers, usually while resisting arrest. Prosecutors say protesters have also spat on officers and thrown rocks, a water bottle, and a kitchen knife. A federal judge has restricted federal agents in Chicago from using tear gas and other anti-riot measures unless there's an immediate threat. District Judge Sarah Ellis said video evidence contradicted government accounts of violence at protests, calling claims of widespread unrest untrue. The Department of Homeland Security criticized the decision as an extreme act by an activist judge, warning it could endanger law enforcement officers. The injunction bars agents from using items such as tear gas and pepper balls unless such force is objectively necessary to prevent an immediate threat. It also bars agents from using physical force, including shoving, against protesters and journalists, and requires agents to give 2 verbal warnings before using riot control weapons. The government plans to appeal the ruling, which stems from ongoing clashes over immigration enforcement operations in Chicago. And the Department of Homeland Security says it's getting record numbers of applicants. The department says more than 35,000 Americans have applied to join its new Homeland Defender program, the most in U.S. citizenship and immigration services history. The DHS launched the campaign on social media in late September to recruit people who will process immigration applications. The agency says new hires can receive signing bonuses of up to $50,000 with no college degree required and options available for remote work. The Immigration Services Director says the campaign has been a tremendous success and has resonated with the American people. And more on immigration, the Department of Homeland Security says the Trump administration has achieved the lowest number of border crossings in October history. And the agency says it's the 6th straight month of no illegal immigrants being released into the country. For analysis on this is Aman Blair, a senior fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation and a retired U.S. Border Patrol agent and retired Army officer. Aman, we appreciate your time. I don't hear the words border crisis being used anymore. What's causing these low border crossing numbers?
Really, it's all it is enacting the rule of law at the southern border. We still do have a lot of crossings. As you notice, the numbers nationwide is about 30,000. So if you think about that, that's about 1,000 a day at our ports of entry and between ports of entry. We also still have gotaways. I do want to make mention that we are still working. We still don't have operational control of the border, especially in Texas. Our border in Texas is about 95% private property. And so it's a lot more difficult for U.S. NORTHCOM to establish national defense areas along our southern border. So if you look on DPS, our state law enforcement agency's online platform on Twitter, you'll see on a daily basis that they're still chasing after illegal aliens that have gotten past Border Patrol or the international line. And they're usually like in camouflage, they're usually in load vehicles getting away. So all this stuff is still happening. And now we are 100% much better off than we were just a few months ago.
Thanks for that insight. Following up on you said that there are people getting through the border and evading detection. How is that possible? I mean, we have striker units on the border. There are very low crossings so that Border Patrol agents can focus on the few that are coming, and they're highly trained individuals. How is that possible?
Sure. I mean, to give you an example, in Texas has 1,254 miles of border with Mexico. And given the terrain, if you just look at the map, you can see how the river just winds back and forth, creating a lot of problems in terms of terrain in order to understand what's coming across. Also, before the Trump administration, the billions of dollars that we spent on outdated technology to understand who, what, where, why, how, or when things are coming across is also very, very difficult still to this day. We still have Vietnam-era ground sensors at the southern border. And so a lot of times Border Patrol agents like myself we would still have to act as if it was 1924, looking at sign within the road. Look as if you're hunting an animal. When you go hunt an animal, you track an animal by the footprints in the sand. They still have to do that at our southern border to figure out who is still coming across, because we still to this day do not have the amount of technology that is needed to have 100% domain awareness, to include in the air, like drones.
Very interesting insight into that. Now, back to the numbers, how do these low crossing numbers impact operations at the border in terms of worker fatigue, proper vetting, ensuring the processing is done fairly and meticulously?
Yeah, great question. So now this gives us the opportunity to, like you said, it allows us to spend the time to process the individual and try to vet them, whether they do have a credible fear claim. Look, during the Biden administration, we were trying to vet the Chinese nationals coming across the border. It took almost 4 hours to question each Chinese national. And that's when the Biden administration decided to change that rule to only asking Chinese nationals 5 questions before we release them into the United States. So now that we have such low crossings and apprehension numbers, it allows the Border Patrol agents to actually vet each individual person, whether they do have a credible fear claim. But the vetting process is still going through its ups and downs. We still cannot truly vet every single illegal alien. We do not share that intelligence with other nations. And so that's still another process that we're trying to figure out as well.
Understood. 6 straight months of no releases. What does that mean for public security in the interior?
That means that we can now add personnel to the interior. Look, we have been invaded. We have millions of illegal aliens now inside of our country. We have every state and non-state adversary working by proxy inside the United States, inside of every one of our communities, whether that's the Mexican cartels, whether that is the triads that are backed by CCP, or the Haqqani network backed by Iran. So now, as you see that we are having more Border Patrol agents now focus their efforts on the interior, as U.S. Northcom now focuses its efforts on our southern border. So you're just seeing a shift in the amount of personnel and resources that we can now attack the problem inside the United States.
Well, it's so important that this obviously be addressed. Now, give us an overview of what's happening at the border. We've been talking about this, but let's delve deeper. Whatever aspects you find most notable, anything from officer morale, humanitarian conditions, et cetera.
Yeah, officer morale is higher than ever before. I mean, to the point where sometimes it's even boring for Border Patrol agents because nothing is coming across. So now the hard work is that we make this permanent, regardless of what president comes in after President Trump. So if it happens now, if we have another invasion now, do we have the critical infrastructure in place, the resources, everything codified in law necessary so that we could stop every single incursion like we're doing so now? That still needs to be played out. So we have 3 years. So we still need Congress's help to codify all the executive orders that Trump's doing. Trump can't do it himself. Border Patrol can't do it himself. This is This is a whole society approach that must be taken to secure our border.
We appreciate you sharing your experience with us. I'm Blair. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Kevin Hogan, and this is World Watch. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says the U.S. carried out another lethal strike on a drug smuggling vessel in the Caribbean. He said yesterday's strike killed 3 people he described as narco-terrorists. The Pentagon says no U.S. forces were harmed in the operation. This is the 17th reported strike against drug smuggling vessels since September. Hegseth warned the strikes will continue until illegal drugs stop flowing into the United States. In a post on X, the secretary wrote, "If you want to stay alive, stop trafficking drugs." And North Korean state media reports that Russian officials were in Pyongyang this week to discuss military coordination between the two nations. The meeting comes after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a mutual defense pact last year. The Pentagon estimates that North Korea has deployed between 11 and 12,000 troops to fight for Russia in Ukraine. And news of the meeting comes as North Korea fired a ballistic missile toward its eastern waters today. The test marked Pyongyang's second launch in less than 3 weeks. And multiple explosions at a high school mosque in Jakarta yesterday injured at least 55 people. Police warned against speculation that the blasts were a terror attack and said they were investigating. Witnesses told local television stations they heard at least 2 loud explosions around midday, just as the sermon had started. Students and others ran out in panic as smoke filled the mosque. Jakarta's police chief said about 20 students remained hospitalized for burns, 3 of them with serious injuries. And what could have been a normal soccer match in Britain instead saw Israeli fans banned from attending due to public security concerns. Pro-Palestinian groups protested against the Maccabi Tel Aviv soccer team, while counter-protesters opposed the ban on Israeli fans. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson sent us this report from Birmingham in England.
Israeli soccer fans were banned from attending a Europa League match in Birmingham, England, where Maccabi Tel Aviv played against Aston Villa on Thursday. Israeli sports teams are a focus for pro-Palestinian protests, with some past incidents turning violent. Aston Villa initially said away fans would be barred on police advice, and the Maccabi club reluctantly opted against selling tickets to their fans. Now, this comes in the wake of rising anti-Semitism in Britain and across Europe. Maccabi fans were hunted down by pro-Palestinian protesters at a soccer match in Amsterdam in the Netherlands last year. Around 60 people were arrested last year in Amsterdam. Social media footage showed fans running for their lives, attackers yelling "Free Palestine," an unconscious body kicked on the ground, and groups of men checking people's passports to see if they were Israeli. 5 people were treated in hospital. Netherlands police said Maccabi supporters burnt a Palestinian flag, pulled down another, and vandalized a taxi. In England, Birmingham police said the threat to Maccabi fans was a consideration, but said the main driver for the ban was the actions of some fans.
We have intelligence and information that says that there is a section of Maccabi fans, not all Maccabi fans, but a section of them who engage in quite significant levels of hooliganism.
The chief executive of Maccabi Tel Aviv said some elements in the club are not in line with the club's values and morals.
But to malign thousands and thousands of good fans with the actions of a few, it's a dangerous game.
British police mounted a large operation with 700 officers to prevent trouble in the city, which has a large Muslim population. One side of the stadium saw around 200 pro-Palestinian protesters with banners calling for a boycott of Israel. On the other side of the stadium, a smaller counter-protest against anti-Semitism. Mark Burbeck said the ban is part of a bigger anti-Israel campaign.
So various political groups and activists, Ayub Khan, for example, the local MP, and various other activists have been campaigning in order to kick Israel out of FIFA, to kick Maccabi Tel Aviv out of UEFA.
Member of Parliament Ayub Khan said there was a moral argument as well as a safety one, arguing for a boycott of the game because of the war in Gaza. A Maccabi fan expressed his frustration that fans could not take part in a normal way.
We wanted to come and take part of a celebration of football for us tonight, and we've been robbed of our opportunity to do so. It's nothing to do with that particular club or those particular fans. I don't see any reason why we would have. We would have issue with the Islamist mob, that's definitely. But I expect the police to deal with the aggressors, not with the victims. That's how it works in a law and order country.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer had previously called for the ban on Maccabi fans to be overturned, saying it was the wrong decision. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, Birmingham.
The Fox Nation Patriot Awards were held yesterday. Turning Point CEO Erica Kirk received an award named after her late husband, the Charlie Kirk Legacy Award. And First Lady Melania Trump was named Fox Nation's Patriot of the Year for her work on behalf of children and families.
I applaud American dreamers and innovators who embrace originality. Let's embrace the spirit of ambition. Let's celebrate everyone who dares to think differently, for it is these courageous Americans who are the heartbeat of our civilization.
He knew that evil wins when good people stay silent. And so for the rest of my life, I will make sure that I don't stay silent. I'll keep speaking the truth, no matter the cost. No matter the cost. And I pray that all of you do too.
Country singer Jason Aldean and his wife Brittany appeared alongside Fox News host Jesse Waters to present the award to Kirk. The recognition will now be a standing feature of the annual Patriot Award. The award celebrates those who embody Charlie Kirk's principles of faith, family, and free expression. Since Charlie's assassination, Erica Kirk has continued his legacy by heading the organization he founded more than 10 years ago. Kirk reflected on one of her late husband's favorite mottos during the event. "It's not how I'm saying it that's upsetting people, it's the fact that I'm saying the truth that's upsetting people." A recent election tie was decided by a hot hand of sorts, with the two candidates deciding their fates with a stroke of luck and a deck of cards. Take a look.
You know what they say, what happens in Vegas sometimes determines elections in the state of Nevada. Okay, it's not exactly a motto, but believe it or not, it is true. Colo reports two candidates deadlocked in an election recently broke the tie with a good old-fashioned card draw as mandated in a quirky election law that is just so Nevada. Following voting in the tiny town of Gerlach, candidates Carl Kopak and Seth Schrenzel were deadlocked at 67 votes each for a seat on the General Improvement District Board. So an official ceremony was held with the Washoe County Registrar of Voters for the tied candidates to pick a card, any card, high card wins. In the end, Schrenzel's 7 of diamonds beat Kopek's 5 of clubs for the next 4-year term on the Gerlach GID.
I wouldn't say that there's anything more Nevada than drawing cards to determine an official election.
Speaking of quirky official ceremonies, a horse is a horse, of course, but in California, this miniature horse is now a sheriff's ambassador. Originally rescued from a life of severe neglect by Monterey County Sheriff's Deputy Rebecca Gordano, KSBW reports Cookie was officially sworn in, complete with a sheriff's hoof shake, as a new honorary community ambassador and will serve as a cuddly conduit between the department and the community. When asked if she is intimidated by her new high-ranking role, Cookie replied simply, nay. Finally, this last one is about a dog that ain't a lion, and I ain't lying. Dog. Police in Ireland released photos of a dog with a lion-looking haircut that set off a brief panic in a community when it was spotted wandering in the area. Reports of a lion on the loose were quickly quelled when instead it turned out to be just a goofily groomed pooch named Mouse.
Sotheby's Geneva is preparing to unveil the Glowing Rose, a 10.08 carat pink diamond. The stone is one of only 3 vivid pink cushion-cut diamonds over 10 carats to have appeared on the market in the past decade. The gem takes its name from its intensely luminous, pure pink color, an exceptionally rare phenomenon as most pink diamonds show secondary hues. The Glowing Rose will headline Sotheby's high jewelry sale on November 12th. Cut from a 21-carat rough diamond mined in Angola in 2023, the stone was certified under the Kimberley process, ensuring ethical and transparent trade.
It's very exciting when you have any pink diamond coming up for sale at auction, particularly one of this size being over 10 carats. And it's nearly flawless as well, which is very rare because quite often these stones can have visible impurities. But this one, you can't see a thing.
Sotheby's will also offer a brooch featuring old mine-cut diamonds once owned by Napoleon Bonaparte. The jewel is valued at up to $250,000. It was seized by the Prussian army as the French emperor fled the Battle of Waterloo and will appear at auction for the first time. It is accompanied by a green beryl stone, which would have been worn by Napoleon at his coronation in 1804, according to tradition. A jewelry executive with Sotheby's explains.
We're very excited because we have, for the first time ever in the market, diamond hat button from Napoleon that was retrieved after his retreat from the battlefield in Waterloo when he was defeated. Another beryl that has also been linked to him in the Hohenzollern treasury for the last 200 years.
The value of the green beryl is estimated at up to $59,000. And if you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at news.today@ntd.com. And for round-the-clock original news coverage, watch us live at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. We'll cover more news right after this break.